Hi, welcome to another episode of Figs Talks Fights. I'm your host, Brian Figueredo, and today we're going to get into post-fight results of UFC Fight Night 166, Curtis Razor Blades versus Junior Dos Santos. Talk a little bit about the main event as well as the co-main event, and then we're going to get a little bit into the Bellator 238 main event that took place last Saturday as well, January the 25th. With Julia Budd versus Cyborg Santos. Cyborg making her debut in Bellator last Saturday for the featherweight title. And as well, we'll just get a little bit to look at what's ahead. But before anything, I did notice that I am wearing a Rush t-shirt today. Okay, it is a coincidence, but since I have this on and we're doing this, just want to say a few things here. For all of us to witness some sort of greatness in our lifetime, we get it a few times, right, per generation. But Neil Peart was something great for generations to look back at for years to come. All right. Now, I'm not going to be here pretending to be the world's biggest Rush fan. Okay. But Neil Peart did pass away about a week ago. And I do want to make just a slight note wearing this t-shirt today that Neil Peart was one of the greatest drummers of all time, all right? You could put this man next to a metronome, all right? This guy was on time every time, okay? So just wanted to give respect out to Neil Peart for being one of the greatest drummers of all time, being a fellow Canadian as well. We salute you, Neil, and thank you for everything you ever did. Not just for music, not just for drummers, but just an inspiration of greatness. So, cheers to you, Neil. So let's talk about the fights. All right. So UFC 160 or UFC Fight Night 166 took place last Saturday, January 25th in Raleigh, North Carolina. And what a main event. But here's the thing. A heavyweight main event. I was saying this in the pre-fight talk that why do you guys keep putting heavyweights in 5-round main events? If it's not a number one contender match, what is the point? Okay? It frustrates me. They hardly ever go 5 rounds, okay? And I get it. We had that great Mark Hunt versus Bigfoot Silva fight that took place like 5.5 years ago in Australia, okay? And everybody's going, could you imagine if that would have been a 3-round fight? Thankfully, it was a 5-rounder. Okay, they're rare every once in a while, but most of the time, come on, guys, they end early. So seriously, moving forward, let's leave this to number one contender fights, okay? All right? If it's going to be a heavyweight main event, number one contender. Anyhow, moving on. So the fight starts, and Junior Dos Santos and Curtis Razor Blades fight begins, and I'm noticing immediately Junior's hands are super low, all right? Now, I know he normally carries his hands a little lower against wrestlers. It's great for his uppercut to set up, okay? His lead left hook, all right? Just catching people at the end of it, setting it up behind the jab. But it was very, very apparent that it was lower than even normal. So when the fight starts, Curtis Blade seems a little bit hesitant on his feet, okay? He's not stiff, but he's questioning every punch, and who can blame him, all right? As he's in the locker room warming up, he's probably seeing highlights of Junior Dos Santos putting people out of consciousness over and over again. Probably playing a little bit with your head, but not too much. So anyhow, Curtis starts to throw in some shots, and Junior's stuffing them. As I said before, Junior Dos Santos trying to put him on his back is like trying to put a cat on his back, all right? Very, very, very difficult to do, okay? Curtis also at first didn't seem like he was too comfortable in the entries. He just wanted to stay on the outside, throw a couple of punches, but when it seemed to shooting in, seemed very hesitant, and he was almost telegraphing it. So as the fight goes on, all right, Junior looks a little bit slow in my opinion, okay? Now he's coming off a serious bacterial infection in his leg. He was actually supposed to fight in Moscow, I believe, last October against Alexander Volkov and had to pull out of the fight due to the injury. Apparently, the man almost lost his leg. Okay? Serious stuff. Scary. Almost lost his leg. And then what? It's November, December, January. 3 months later, he's back fighting, okay? He did not seem like the Junior Chigano dos Santos that put out Cain Velasquez in 1 minute, okay? He seemed very far from it. Is it the age is finally catching up to him? I mean, he is only 36 years old, which is still pretty young for a heavyweight, but think about all the mileage this guy has on him. The fight with Mark Hunt, the 2 wars with Cain Velasquez, the first war with Stipe Miocic. Okay, he's had a bunch of KOs before. He's been knocked out by Stipe in their second fight. Alistair Overeem and Francis Ngannou is the fight that he was coming off of that he also got KO'd in. So, little concerning, but hey, I'm not his family. I'm just looking as a spectator. This was the guy on the couch, and this is what I saw. Curtis Razor Blades, on the other hand, as soon as he got confident with his punches, he looked fantastic, okay? All of a sudden, Junior wasn't worried about the takedown anymore. He kept keeping his hands a little bit lower, anticipating it, but still leaving himself open. Eventually, at 106 in the second round, Curtis finally catches him, all right, and just puts it on him against the cage, and then forces a TKO stoppage, all right? Great stoppage, all right? I'm a fan of Junior Dos Santos, and I do not want him to take more blows than he necessarily needs to, all right? Come back to fight another day. But if I was Junior, I would take some serious time off now. Make sure that, who knows if that leg injury is even healed, all right? 3 months to come out of a surgery, getting rid of it, and to be back fighting Curtis Razor Blades, who's on a tear. I don't know about you guys, but it sounded like a little bit too much to chew way too quickly. So what's next for Junior? I'd like to see him wait until at least summertime and take off on somebody in either the lower top 10 or in the early teens, okay? Give him something to bounce back off of, and let's find out if he really was just coming off an injury and just didn't have his timing right, okay? Or if age is finally catching up to him, okay? Catches up to everyone. Now, Curtis Razor Blades, as soon as the fight's over, is on the mic with Daniel Cormier. Cormier asks him, what's next for you? A little awkward as he says, I want a title shot. He's asking, what do you want next? Knowing, Daniel Cormier this is, that he's next for a title shot against Stipe Miocic. Okay, Curtis Blades is doing everything right now, but he's kind of in no man's land. Next month, Francis Ngannou is going to be taking on, why is it escaping me? Rosenstrike. I apologize. Rosenstrike, who just knocked out Alistair Overeem last month. Okay, that's more or less going to be the #1 contender fight. So if you're Curtis Blades, you're going to want Rosenstrike to win that fight if you're even thinking of sniffing a title shot. More than likely, it's going to be Cormier and Stipe Miocic fighting for the 3rd time for the heavyweight title this coming summer. And then from there, if Francis wins again, how can you deny him? I think that'll be 4 wins in a row since losing to Stipe Miocic and the boring Derek Lewis fight, that he's just been on fire putting people away. You can't deny him. And considering in the recent run that Francis has had of knockouts, it started with knocking out Curtis Razor Blades in under a minute. So, tough. What are you going to do? You're a top 5 heavyweight fighter, and I am glad that I do not work at the UFC headquarters trying to find a matchup for him, because realistically, it's going to be at least another year before he sniffs a shot at the title, unless, injuries happen all the time and he can fill in, all right? So, look out for that. In the co-main event, this should have been the main event, all right? It was Rafael dos Anjos taking on Michael Chiesa, and what a great fight this was. Now, first of all, how the hell did Michael Chiesa make 155 pounds, all right? This guy is 6'1", broad shoulders, leaned out as hell, all right? And he looked huge as a welterweight. I know the very last time he competed at the 155-pound division, I believe it was July of 2018, and he took on Anthony Pettis. He didn't look so great. He missed weight just by a pound. I think he weighed in at 157, missing the weight limit by only should have weighed in at 156 maximum, but nonetheless, he said that would be the last time he fought at 155, and I am happy for him that it is. He's been looking on fire, beating Carlos Condit with a Kimura, taking on Diego Sanchez for basically a 3-round clinic. Played with Diego for 3 rounds. You also got to give Diego credit that he has the heart to take a beating like that for 3 rounds. Lots of great scrambles in that fight. If you haven't seen it, I highly suggest you go back and watch it. But Chiesa just looked huge. Now, Rafael dos Anjos, this guy is tough. I mean, he is the new measuring stick gatekeeper for 170 pounds, because anybody that can get past him, they either go off to win the title or they're going off to fight for the title, okay? Now, Chiesa put Rafael dos Anjos in some rough positions in the first round, okay? Mainly for his famous back take with his rear naked choke, but dos Anjos is a tough night out for anyone, okay? Chiesa did as much as he could, just trying to reap up underneath the chin. Dos Anjos rightfully defends, just keeps looking into the choke, doesn't let him sink under there. Don't think they were sweaty enough in the first round for Chiesa to just slide it underneath there, but still, as much as I got to give Chiesa props for putting it on somebody like Rafael dos Anjos like that, got to give props to RDA for defending a rear naked choke from Michael Chiesa, because more than likely, he gets your back, it's pretty much game over, all right? So, second round comes in, and Rafael dos Anjos starts to find his rhythm again. He's putting his shots together a little bit better, landing some combinations. Chiesa did look great on the feet, but you could just tell RDA was a lot more fluent than Chiesa was. So, you know, RDA takes round 2. Round 3 comes back, and Michael Chiesa just took over. He took over right as the bell rang, okay? This was it was fairly competitive, but it was an obvious round for Michael Chiesa. So they go to the scorecards, they announce it 29-28 with RDA winning the second round. Chiesa wins, unanimous decision. Great job. Hats off to you. Hats off. Now, as soon as that fight's over, Daniel Cormier comes in to interview Michael Chiesa, and he kept it short and sweet. Now, I promise you, about halfway through this fight, I'm thinking, you know what? If Chiesa's going to take this, Colby Covington's coming off the loss to Kamaru Usman. Pretty great fight that was, too. Why not pair these two together? It's almost as if he read my fucking mind, because he gets on the microphone and he goes, I'll tell you, I want my next opponent, July, Colby Covington. I'll see you there. Short and sweet. Guys, I fucking love this fight. This is a great fight. Colby Covington versus Michael Chiesa. Make this one, if you're going to do a fight night, make this the 5-round main event. It's a great fight for Colby to come back to. And it's a great fight for Chiesa to finally break through that top 5 and see if he can get a title shot on his own right, okay? How these two match up, though, it's going to be interesting. Colby Covington is a southpaw wrestler, and his boxing has actually started to look really good now. As I've said it before, I'm not a professional fighter, but there's one thing that I could pick at Michael Chiesa. His entries between striking and going for the takedown on RDA just seemed a little too rushed, and he left himself open. If you want to rewatch that fight, there's a few points where he just reaches his arms out and just starts getting in on Rafael dos Anjos. Now, Rafael dos Anjos, I don't know if he was watching too much tape on Michael Chiesa, but trust me, the guys over at American Top Team, if I noticed that, you're fucking right they did. And what these guys are probably going to be drilling is that lead uppercut right on Chiesa's entry, or they're going to step off to the left or to the right, which would be Covington's lead hand as a southpaw, okay? Just as he shoots in, they're going to pivot, turn the entry, and they're probably going to be looking for their own double from that point on. Or Colby's just going to put it on him against the fence like he did to Robbie Lawler last July. Now, say what you will about Colby Covington, all right? I know the guy talks a lot of shit, walks around with the MAGA hat on, talks all this Trump shit, and God knows who the fuck that's triggering these days. Relax, people. It's just an act. This guy is able to instill emotion and hate in people, which is great for him, all right? Do you know who was watching Colby Covington fight 5 years ago? Me, on the fucking prelims. And then anybody I would ask, hey, did you see Colby Covington fight? Who? Who the hell is that guy? Everybody knows him now because he's talked so much shit that he's getting himself a great paycheck. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the whole trash talk, okay? I like the era of honor and respect. Shake your hands, let's have a great fight and have some respect amongst opponents. But hey, it's entertaining, I won't lie. A little bit too much on the WWE side for me to be a crazy fan of, but still, this guy instills the fans to hate him. And then he's starting to get people to love him too because, come on, if you saw that 5-round fight with Kamaru Usman, this guy has grit. He is tough as hell. And did you see what the hell he did to Robbie Lawler? Nobody does that to Robbie Lawler, all right? And Robbie Lawler has been in there with the toughest of the tough, going all the way up to 195 pounds and a catch weight to fight Renato Babalu Sobral, former UFC title weight challenger at light heavyweight, okay? Robbie Lawler is a tough cookie. And Colby almost made it look easy, right? Just opening that cut at the end of the fight, he was pretty much unscathed. So Michael Chiesa, Colby Covington on the feet. I'm actually kind of favoring Colby to win that, but if they get to the ground, I mean, Colby Covington is a high-level Division I NCAA wrestling champion, all right? He has serious wrestling credentials, and he puts it on you. But what's a great defense attack against a wrestler that aggressive? Submissions, of course. So can Colby Covington keep his posture up, maintain position, and put it on Chiesa if they even go to the ground? Or is he going to get swept, subbed? We'll see. I hope they make that fight. Sounds great to me. If you can't tell, I am fucking excited just at the prospect of them putting that together. So would love to see that. Anyhow, moving on from the UFC event, Bellator 238 took place in Inglewood, California, went also last Saturday, January 25th. I believe it was at the Forum. And the main event was Canadian featherweight champion Julia Budd taking on Chris Cyborg. All right. This was Cyborg's debut in Bellator. She didn't look nervous at all. All right. She looked like she was right at home. She has a great relationship with the promoter, Scott Coker, who, if you don't know, used to run Strikeforce before the UFC bought them up in 2011, I believe it was. So she's back at home. She's happy. She's getting treated right. Good for you, Chris. You deserve it. So Julia Budd comes out, and she comes out strong. Now, I predicted a competitive fight, and it did start off very competitively, all right? And it looked like Chris Cyborg knew she was in for a tough fight. Let me give you an example. Have you ever prepared for something in your life, being like, could be an exam for school, could be a big game, a championship game of a sport, could have been anything, maybe a play in a band, a concert, okay? Something that you prepared for and you worked really hard because you did not want failure upon you when it was go time. Well, ever get into one of those events after you've worked really hard and you start to realize, shit, it's pretty easy, I got it. I knew it was going to be hard, and but this is going way better than I prepared for it to be. It's kind of how Chris Cyborg looked in the beginning of the first round. Julia Budd kept clinching up with her, putting her on the fence, and eventually got a takedown on her, but Chris was just smiling the whole time. It's almost as if she knew exactly what Julia Budd's game plan was, okay? At the end of the first round, though, Cyborg was eventually able to escape her hips out. I think Julia Budd left that side mount just a little too often for a black belt like Chris Cyborg to just shrimp out, get on her hips, and get that sweep and get right on top of Julia Budd, and she started putting it on her. So the second round was a little bit more back and forth, but getting into the third round, Chris Cyborg was taking over. I mean, as a fan watching this and thinking, hey, can Julia do this? Can Julia do this? My hopes were sinking lower and lower to no surprise, okay? Chris Cyborg wasn't just coming after her like the Elite XC days, just throwing these Vanderlei Silva haymaker styles. She was actually picking her shots and mixing up leg kicks at the end of her combinations and keeping Julia guessing. Okay, towards the end of the third round, you could just see it was just overwhelming Julia, and her confidence was shook. To me, it looked like her game plan, which was a smart one when you're facing a power puncher, was to just hold her up and make her clinch as much as possible, make Cyborg grapple as much as possible, because, you know, if you want to be a fast striker, getting all those blood into your arms, I mean, look, if you've never ever wondered to know what the hell that feels like to grapple and go from striking, get down on your floor right now and do push-ups until you can't do them anymore. And then when you can't do them anymore, just squeeze 1 or 2 extra push-ups in there. Now, get up and start throwing punches. You're going to notice that your arms have slowed down significantly. And I think this is what Julia Budd was looking for to happen in her favor in this fight. But shit, it didn't. It really didn't. So coming into the fourth round, Cyborg is just taking over and she smells blood. Okay? She puts some combinations together and eventually gets the TKO against Julia Budd at 1 minute and 14 seconds of the fourth round. Okay? Congratulations, Chris Cyborg. Holy shit. Okay? You were the Elite XC champion. You were the Strikeforce champion. You were the Invicta champion. You were the UFC champion. And you're now the fucking Bellator champion. I mean, it doesn't matter where you put this girl. She's just a winner. But this is going to be a problem. Who's next? Who's next for Cyborg? I don't know. Who are they going to get to fight this girl? All right? Half of the roster at featherweight, she's already dismantled anyways in previous organizations. So it looks like Cyborg's going to be going back to the Smashing Tour, because I don't see anybody putting it on her in that organization. I just don't. Hopefully Julia Budd, she can regroup. She can work on everything that she felt didn't go her way. Okay? No expert. I'm not her coach, so I ain't going to tell her what to do. Looks like she just got outmatched, so it might be a skills gap. Who the hell knows? That's up for her to decide, but I do not see any competition coming for Chris Cyborg anytime soon. So from the amount of money I heard she's getting paid, good for her. Easy nights out, money in the bank. Hey, congratulations. You won the fight game. So moving forward, we got nothing going on this weekend. Nothing. Can you believe that? An MMA fan and you're going to have no UFC on Saturday? Great. Maybe you can, live your life. But the next Saturday, oh, you better fucking believe they're back. UFC 247 will be going on Saturday, February 8th, and it's going to be headlined by John Jones versus Dominic Reyes. Now, I'll do a video talking about that another time, but a lot of people don't realize how much of a threat Dominic Reyes is, okay? Especially in the post-USADA era, okay? Post-USADA John Jones might be a different thing we're looking at, but we'll talk about that in the next video. So if you've liked anything here today, please subscribe to the channel. Had a couple of fumbles in the beginning there. Blah, 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 blah. You know how the mouth works. What can I do? So thank you very much for watching, okay? Have yourself a great one, and